I came home from a 2-week vacation to find my pool filled with dirty brown water and a fine notice taped to my front door. Standing on my back patio in Phoenix, Arizona, staring at what used to be crystal clear blue water, I felt my blood pressure spike. The pool I had meticulously maintained for 5 years now looked like a swamp, and according to the letter in my hand, the Saguaro Heights Homeowners Association had done this while I was gone. My name is Harrison Granger, and I had just spent 14 glorious days exploring national parks across Utah with my girlfriend Emma. We had turned off our phones, disconnected from the world, and enjoyed nature. Now I was standing in my backyard at 9 in the morning, jet-lagged and furious, reading a violation notice that claimed my pool had been improperly maintained and posed a health hazard to the community. The notice was dated 5 days ago. It stated that the HOA board had authorized emergency action to drain my pool and refill it, charging me $3,000 for the service. $3,000 for destroying my pool. I pulled out my phone and immediately called the HOA office. A chipper voice answered after 3 rings. Saguaro Heights HOA, this is Bethany speaking. How may I help you? This is Harrison Granger from 4782 Desert Vista Drive. I just got back from vacation and found that someone drained and refilled my pool without my permission. What the hell is going on? There was a pause. Oh, Mr. Granger. Yes, let me pull up your file. One moment, please. I heard typing in the background while I stared at the murky water. The pool equipment was humming, trying to filter whatever disaster they had created, but the water looked like chocolate milk. Yes, sir. I see here that Karen Jameson, our HOA president, authorized emergency maintenance on your property due to health code violations. The pool was green and contained stagnant water breeding mosquitoes. That's impossible, I said, keeping my voice level despite wanting to scream. I had my pool service come the day before I left. The water was perfect. I have receipts and photos. Well, sir, the board has photographs showing the condition of the pool when they accessed your property. You'll need to speak with Mrs. Jameson directly about any disputes. She'll be in the office tomorrow from 10 to noon. Tomorrow? This needs to be handled today. Give me her phone number. I'm not authorized to give out personal contact information. You can email her through the HOA portal or speak with her tomorrow during office hours. I hung up without saying goodbye, which was rude, but I was beyond caring about politeness. My pool looked like someone had filled it with dirt water, and I was being charged $3,000 for the privilege. Walking around the pool, I noticed the coping stones were cracked in several places. The pool deck had muddy footprints leading to my side gate, which was slightly ajar. I always locked that gate. Always. I took photos of everything with my phone, documenting the brown water, the cracks, the gate, and the footprints. Then I went inside and pulled up the security camera footage on my laptop. I had installed cameras 6 months ago after a string of package thefts in the neighborhood. The camera pointing toward the backyard should have caught everything. The footage made my jaw clench. On the second day of my vacation, a woman in her mid-40s with short blonde hair and oversized sunglasses had entered my backyard with 2 men in blue uniforms. She pointed at the pool while talking on her phone, gesturing dramatically. The pool water in the footage was clear and blue. Perfectly maintained. The men connected a large pump to my pool drain and began emptying it. The process took hours. The woman stayed the entire time, sitting in one of my patio chairs, scrolling through her phone. When the pool was empty, I could see the men pointing at something at the bottom. The woman climbed down the pool steps to look, and one of the men took photos with his phone. The next day, they returned with a water truck and began filling the pool. but the water coming out was brown and murky. They were filling my pool with reclaimed or untreated water. The woman watched for about 30 minutes, then left. The men finished filling the pool and packed up their equipment. I had everything on video. Clear evidence that my pool had been fine, that they had drained it anyway, and that they had refilled it with contaminated water. I spent the rest of the day making copies of the footage and photos, backing everything up to cloud storage. Then I called my pool service company. Desert Oasis Pool Service, this is Mike. Mike, it's Harrison Granger. I have a major problem. I explained the situation, and Mike agreed to come out that afternoon. When he arrived, he took one look at the pool and whistled low. Man, that's bad. That's not even city water. Look at the sediment already settling at the bottom. This looks like they used reclaimed irrigation water or something. You can't swim in this. Actually, this might have damaged your pool equipment. Let me check your filters. He opened the filter housing and swore. Yeah, your filter is completely clogged with sediment and debris. This is ruined. You'll need a new filter housing, new cartridges, and we need to drain this pool completely, acid wash it, and refill it properly. We're looking at probably $6,000 to $8,000 to fix this right. My stomach dropped. $8,000, at least. The damage to your pool surface might be worse than I can see right now. That brown water is staining the plaster. You might need to resurface the entire pool. If that's the case, we're talking $20,000 to $30,000. I felt sick. Can you write this up in a detailed report? I'm going to need documentation for a lawsuit. Mike nodded. Absolutely. I'll get you a full damage assessment in writing by tomorrow. Take more photos and don't touch anything. Actually, you should get a water sample tested. I know a lab that can tell you exactly what's in there. After Mike left, I sat on my back patio and tried to process everything. The HOA had trespassed on my property, destroyed my pool based on false claims, and now I was facing tens of thousands of dollars in damage. All because some power-hungry HOA president decided to flex her authority. That evening, I drafted an email to Karen Jameson through the HOA portal. I kept it professional but firm, explaining that I had evidence my pool was properly maintained before I left, that I had not authorized anyone to enter my property, and that the refilled pool was now actually a health hazard. I requested an immediate meeting and stated that I would be seeking full compensation for all damages. The response came an hour later. Mr. Granger, the HOA board acted within our authority as outlined in the CC and advocacy you agreed to when purchasing your home. Section 7.3 allows the board to access any property for emergency maintenance when health and safety issues arise. Your pool was photographed showing green, stagnant water with visible algae and mosquito larvae. The assessment and refill charges are valid and must be paid within 30 days to avoid additional late fees and potential liens on your property. The board stands by our actions. Regards, Karen Jameson, HOA President. I read the email 3 times, my anger building with each pass. They were doubling down, not only refusing to take responsibility, but threatening me with liens if I didn't pay for the damage they caused. I pulled out my CC and advocacy, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions that govern the HOA. Section 7.3 did grant the board access for emergencies, but it required photographic evidence and written notice to the homeowner. I had received neither before they drained my pool. The notice taped to my door was dated after they had already done the work. The next morning, I was at the HOA office at exactly 10. The office was in a small building near the community entrance, decorated with desert plants and Southwest art. A young woman sat at the reception desk, the same Bethany I had spoken to on the phone. "I'm here to see Karen Jameson," I said. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but she's expecting me. Harrison Granger." Bethany picked up her phone and spoke quietly, then nodded toward a door. "She'll see you now." Karen Jameson's office was larger than I expected, with a big desk and walls covered in framed photos of community events. She sat behind her desk wearing a white blouse and statement necklace, her blonde hair perfectly styled. She didn't stand when I entered. "Mr. Granger, please sit." "I'll stand," I said. "This won't take long. I have video evidence that my pool was properly maintained when you had it drained. You had no legal right to enter my property, and your contractors filled my pool with contaminated water that has caused thousands of dollars in damage. I want the HOA to pay for all repairs immediately." She leaned back in her chair, completely unbothered. "Mr. Granger, I understand you're upset, but the facts are clear. Your pool was green and filled with stagnant water. We have photographs." "So do I," I said. "From my security cameras, showing my pool was crystal clear when your crew showed up. I also have footage of them filling my pool with brown water." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across her face. "Security cameras?" "Yes, high definition, time-stamped, showing everything. I also have the service receipt from my pool company dated the day before I left, confirming the pool was properly maintained. So either your photographs are fake, or you're lying about when they were taken." Karen's expression hardened. "Are you accusing me of fraud?" "I'm stating facts. My pool was fine. You had it drained anyway. Your contractors damaged my property and filled it with contaminated water. I have a damage assessment from my pool service estimating repairs between $8,000 and $30,000. The HOA will be paying for all of it." She stood up, placing her hands on her desk. "The board acted appropriately. If you disagree with our decision, you can appeal to the board at next month's meeting. Until then, you still owe $3,000 for the work performed." "I'm not paying a cent," I said. "And I won't be waiting a month. You have 48 hours to agree to cover all damages, or I'm filing a lawsuit. My lawyer will be contacting you." I walked out before she could respond, my heart pounding. I didn't actually have a lawyer yet, but that was my next stop. Back home, I started researching attorneys who specialized in HOA disputes. I found a firm called Henderson and Associates that had excellent reviews and a track record of winning cases against overreaching HOAs. I called and explained my situation to the paralegal who answered. She scheduled a consultation for that afternoon. Robert Henderson was in his 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes. His office overlooked downtown Phoenix, and his walls were lined with legal books and framed victory articles. He listened to my entire story without interrupting, occasionally taking notes. When I finished, he leaned forward. "Do you have all this documentation organized?" "Everything. Video footage, photos, service receipts, water testing results pending, and a written damage assessment from my pool company." "Good. This is a strong case. The HOA violated multiple statutes. First, they accessed your property without proper notice. The CC and Articus require written notice at least 72 hours before entering a property for non-life-threatening emergencies. A pool with allegedly stagnant water doesn't qualify as life-threatening. Second, if their photographs showing a green pool were taken after they drained it, that's fraud. If they were taken before but they knew your pool was fine, that's also fraud. Third, they caused significant property damage through negligence or intentional misconduct. We can pursue damages for repair costs, loss of property value, emotional distress, and possibly punitive damages if we can prove malicious intent. How long will this take? Depends on whether they settle or fight. HOAs usually settle once they realize they're in the wrong and their insurance company gets involved. But some boards are stubborn. We could be looking at anywhere from 3 months to a year. I want to move forward, I said. Whatever it takes. Robert nodded. I'll draft a demand letter today. We'll send it certified mail, giving them 10 days to respond with an agreement to cover all damages. If they refuse, we file suit. My retainer is $5,000, and I work on contingency for HOA cases. If we win, I take 30% of the settlement or judgment. If we lose, you're only out the retainer. I wrote the check that afternoon. Over the next week, several things happened simultaneously. The water testing came back showing my pool contained elevated levels of bacteria, sediment, and chemicals inconsistent with treated municipal water. The lab confirmed it was likely reclaimed or irrigation water, unsuitable for swimming pools. Mike from Desert Oasis provided a detailed damage report estimating total repairs at $23,000, including pool resurfacing, new filtration equipment, and proper refill. Robert sent the demand letter to Karen Jameson and the HOA board, laying out the evidence and demanding $25,000 to cover repairs and my legal fees. The letter arrived on a Monday. By Wednesday, I received a response. Not from Karen, but from the HOA's attorney, a lawyer named Patricia Knowles. Her letter was dismissive, essentially repeating Karen's position that the board acted within their authority and that I was responsible for the maintenance fees. They want to fight, Robert said when I forwarded him the response. Fine. We'll file suit. The complaint was filed in Maricopa County Superior Court the following week. I was suing the Saguaro Heights HOA and Karen Jameson personally for trespass, property damage, negligence, and fraud. The amount sought was $50,000, including actual damages, consequential damages, and attorney fees. The lawsuit apparently rattled some cages. Within days of being served, I received angry emails from 2 other board members, accusing me of causing unnecessary drama and wasting HOA resources on legal fees. I forwarded everything to Robert and didn't respond. Then things got nasty. I received a new violation notice citing me for an unsightly pool and demanding I fix it within 7 days or face daily fines of $100. The irony was almost funny. They had destroyed my pool, and now they were fining me because it looked bad. Robert immediately filed for a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction, arguing that the HOA was retaliating against me for filing the lawsuit. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. In the meantime, the local news got wind of the story. A reporter named Jessica Chen from Channel 12 contacted me after seeing the court filing. She wanted to do a story about HOA overreach. I agreed to an interview. The segment aired on a Friday evening. Jessica stood in front of my house, explaining how the HOA had drained my pool while I was on vacation, despite evidence it was properly maintained. They showed footage from my security camera of the clear blue pool before the HOA crew arrived, and photos of the brown water afterward. They interviewed Mike from Desert Oasis, who explained the damage, and they tried to interview Karen Jameson, who slammed the door in their face. The story went viral locally. By the next morning, my phone was blowing up with messages from neighbors, some supportive, others angry that I was making the neighborhood look bad. The HOA's Facebook page was flooded with comments, most of them critical of the board. The hearing for the preliminary injunction took place in a courtroom downtown. Robert argued that the HOA was illegally retaliating against me, and that the new violation notices were baseless since they had caused the pool's condition. The HOA's attorney, Patricia Knowles, argued that enforcing community standards wasn't retaliation. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Sandra Martinez, wasn't buying it. "Counselor, your client drained and refilled this pool, allegedly causing the current condition, and now they're fining the plaintiff for that same condition. That seems problematic." Patricia tried to argue that the pool's current state was due to lack of maintenance, not the refill, but the judge cut her off. "I've reviewed the evidence submitted by the plaintiff, including the water testing results showing contaminated water was used to refill the pool. I'm granting the preliminary injunction. The HOA is barred from assessing any fines or penalties related to the pool condition until this case is resolved. Additionally, the HOA is ordered to cease all non-emergency contact with the plaintiff, except through counsel." It was a small victory, but it felt good. Karen's face in the courtroom was priceless, a mix of shock and fury. Outside the courthouse, Robert put a hand on my shoulder. "That went well. The judge clearly sees through their nonsense. This will help our case significantly." "What happens now?" "Discovery. We'll request all HOA documents related to your property, board meeting minutes, Karen's emails, everything. They'll do the same to you, but you've got nothing to hide. Then we'll depose Karen and the board members. If they're smart, they'll settle before trial." Discovery was a nightmare for the HOA. Robert's requests were extensive and specific, forcing them to produce emails, text messages, photos, and financial records. What we uncovered was shocking. The photographs Karen claimed showed my green, algae-filled pool had metadata showing they were taken 3 days after the pool was drained. They were photos of a different pool entirely, from a property on the other side of the neighborhood that actually did have maintenance issues. Karen had used someone else's pool photos to justify draining mine. Even worse, the text messages between Karen and the contractors revealed that she had specifically instructed them to use reclaimed water to save money. "Just fill it with the cheap stuff," one text read. "He'll never know the difference." When Robert showed me these discoveries, I couldn't believe it. She committed fraud and then tried to cover it up. This isn't just negligence, this is intentional. "Yes," Robert said, "which means we can pursue punitive damages." This also opens her up to criminal charges for fraud and trespassing. I'm going to recommend we forward this evidence to the county attorney's office. The depositions were scheduled for early December. Karen went first, and I was allowed to observe. Sitting in the conference room at Patricia Knowles' office, watching Karen squirm under Robert's questioning was deeply satisfying. "Mrs. Jameson, can you explain why the photographs you submitted showing a green pool have metadata indicating they were taken after you had already drained Mr. Granger's pool?" Karen's face went red. "I don't know anything about metadata. Those are photos of his pool." The metadata shows these photos were taken at 4782 Saguaro Lane, not 4782 Desert Vista Drive. "That's a different address, isn't it?" Silence. "Mrs. Jameson, did you use photographs of a different property to justify draining Mr. Granger's pool?" I may have gotten the addresses confused. There were multiple properties with pool issues that week. But Mr. Granger's pool didn't have issues, did it? We have his security footage showing clear water. I was told his pool was green. Who told you that? I don't remember. One of the neighbors, I think. You made the decision to drain a homeowner's pool, costing thousands of dollars, based on something a neighbor might have said without verifying the claim yourself, Karen's attorney interjected. "You're badgering the witness." Robert didn't back down. "I'm establishing that Mrs. Jameson acted without proper evidence. Let's move on. Mrs. Jameson, why did you instruct the contractors to use reclaimed water instead of treated municipal water? I didn't. Robert pulled out his phone. I'm showing you Exhibit 17B, a text message from your phone number to the contractor's phone number, dated the day they refilled the pool. It says, and I quote, "Just fill it with the cheap stuff. He'll never know the difference. Can you explain this text?" Karen's face went from red to pale. That was taken out of context. What context would make instructing contractors to use contaminated water acceptable? The deposition continued for 3 hours. By the end, Karen had contradicted herself multiple times, admitted to not following proper procedures, and failed to explain away the damning text messages. Patricia looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. The depositions of the other board members were less dramatic. Most claimed they had simply trusted Karen's judgment and hadn't reviewed the evidence themselves before approving the action. One board member, an older man named George, actually seemed sympathetic. I voted yes, because Karen showed us photos of a green pool and said it was urgent. If I had known there was any question about the accuracy of that information, I would have demanded more investigation. This whole thing is a mess. 2 weeks after the depositions, Robert received a call from Patricia Knowles. The HOA wanted to settle. The initial offer was insulting, $15,000 and an agreement that I wouldn't speak publicly about the case. Robert laughed and countered with $80,000, which included full pool repairs, compensation for my time and stress, attorney fees, and punitive damages. The negotiations went back and forth for a week. I told Robert I didn't care about getting rich from this. I wanted my pool fixed properly, my attorney fees covered, and I wanted Karen held accountable. The final settlement was $65,000. $25,000 would go to pool repairs. Robert's fees were 30% as agreed, and the remaining amount was for my damages and stress. Additionally, Karen Jameson was required to resign from the HOA board immediately and permanently. The settlement agreement included a clause that, while both parties would agree not to disparage each other, the terms of the settlement would not be confidential. I wanted other homeowners to know what had happened. I also insisted that the evidence be forwarded to the county attorney. Robert made that happen independently of the settlement. 2 months later, Karen was charged with criminal trespass and fraud. She pleaded guilty to a reduced charge and received probation, a fine, and community service. The pool repairs took 6 weeks. Mike and his team drained the contaminated water properly. Acid washed the entire pool, replaced all damaged equipment, resurfaced the plaster, repaired the cracked coping stones, and refilled it with clean, treated water. When they finished, my pool looked better than it had in years. The HOA board underwent major changes. 3 of the 5 members resigned, including the vice president and treasurer. New elections were held, and several neighbors who had been vocal about wanting reform joined the board. The new president, a reasonable guy named Tom who lived 2 streets over, reached out to me personally. "Harrison, I want you to know that what happened to you was completely unacceptable. The new board is committed to transparency and following proper procedures. We've implemented new rules requiring board approval for any property access, mandatory written notice, and photographic evidence that's properly verified and dated. We're also conducting an audit of all HOA actions from the past 2 years to make sure nothing like this happened to anyone else." I appreciate that, Tom. I never wanted to be at war with the HOA. I just wanted to be left alone to maintain my own property. Understood. For what it's worth, about 60% of the neighborhood supports what you did. The other 40% think you're a troublemaker, but they're slowly coming around as they learn more about what actually happened. The story didn't end there. Jessica Chen from Channel 12 did a follow-up segment about the settlement and Karen's criminal charges. The story got picked up by national news outlets as an example of HOA overreach. I did a few more interviews, always emphasizing that I wasn't anti-HOA in principle, but that boards needed accountability and homeowners needed to know their rights. Several lawyers contacted me asking to use my case as a teaching example in HOA law. A few homeowners from other neighborhoods reached out, sharing their own HOA horror stories and asking for advice. I always referred them to Robert, who was building quite a reputation as an HOA fighter. 6 months after the settlement, I was finally able to enjoy my pool again. It was a Saturday afternoon in late spring, perfect Phoenix weather before the brutal summer heat set in. I was floating on a raft, cold drink in hand, when my girlfriend Emma came out carrying her phone. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "What now?" Karen Jameson just posted on Facebook complaining about how she was victimized by a vindictive homeowner and an aggressive legal system. "She's claiming she did nothing wrong and that you ruined her life." I sighed. "Of course she is." Some people never learn. Aren't you going to respond? No. The court records speak for themselves. Anyone who wants the truth can find it. I'm done with this. I just want to enjoy my pool. And I did. The water was crystal clear, perfectly balanced, and actually safe to swim in. It had cost me months of stress, thousands in legal fees that weren't covered by the settlement, and a lot of aggravation. But it was worth it. A few weeks later, I received a letter from the HOA's insurance company. They were dropping the association's coverage due to the Karen Jameson incident and the payout. The new board had to scramble to find new insurance, which cost significantly more. Some homeowners blamed me for the increased fees, but the majority blamed Karen and the old board for their reckless actions. Tom called me to give me a heads up. "Harrison, I wanted you to hear this from me first. Our insurance premiums are going up because of what happened. Some people are going to complain and try to blame you. The board is drafting a letter explaining that the premium increase is a direct result of the previous board's actions and poor judgment. We're making it clear this isn't your fault." "Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that." Also, we're updating the CC and advocacy to include stronger homeowner protections and limiting the board's emergency access powers. We'd like your input on the language if you're willing. I was surprised. Really? What happened to you exposed serious flaws in our governing documents. If we want to prevent this from happening again, we need to fix those flaws. You have a unique perspective. I agreed to help. Over the next few months, I worked with Tom and the new board to revise the CC and advocacy. The changes included mandatory written notice for property access, except in true life-threatening emergencies, requirements for verified evidence before taking action, a formal appeals process, and provisions allowing homeowners to recover attorney fees if the HOA acted improperly. The revised CC and advocacy were presented to the community for a vote. They passed with 78% approval. Several homeowners came up to me at the meeting to thank me for pushing for change. One of them was an elderly woman named Dorothy who lived on my street. "My husband and I have lived here for 15 years, she said. "Karen and her board had become bullies. They fined us twice for nonsense violations, and we just paid because we didn't know we could fight back. What you did showed everyone that the HOA isn't untouchable. Thank you." Those conversations made everything worthwhile. The stress, the money, the time, all of it mattered because it created real change. Of course, not everyone was happy. I still got dirty looks from some neighbors who thought I had damaged the community's reputation. One guy, a friend of Karen's named Jeff, confronted me at the mailbox one day. "You know you cost everyone money with your lawsuit, right? Our fees went up because of you." I kept my voice calm. "The fees went up because Karen Jameson committed fraud and destroyed my property." I defended myself. "If you have a problem with that, take it up with her. She was just trying to maintain community standards. By draining my properly maintained pool with fake evidence and filling it with contaminated water, that's not maintaining standards, that's vandalism." He didn't have a response to that and walked away muttering, "Emma asked me once if I regretted buying a house in an HOA. Would you do it differently if you could go back?" I thought about it. Honestly, no. I love this house. I love the neighborhood despite everything. And I think the HOA can actually be a good thing if it's run properly. The problem wasn't the HOA itself. It was Karen and her ego. Now that she's gone and the rules have been fixed, this is a pretty great place to live. You're more forgiving than I would be. I'm not forgiving. I'm just realistic. I fought back, I won, and I made things better. That's all I can do. By the 1-year anniversary of the pool incident, life had mostly returned to normal. My pool was perfect. The HOA was functioning properly under new leadership. Karen had moved to a different part of Phoenix, possibly to escape the neighborhood gossip. And I had become something of a local advocate for homeowner rights. Robert Henderson called me with an interesting opportunity. "Harrison, I'm speaking at a homeowner rights conference in Tucson next month. They want someone to share a personal story about fighting HOA overreach. Interested, speaking in front of a crowd. I don't know. You'd be great. And it would help a lot of people who are going through similar situations. Think about it." I did think about it and eventually agreed. The conference was intimidating, with hundreds of people in attendance, but my story resonated. After my talk, dozens of people came up to share their own HOA nightmares and ask for advice. I realized how common these problems were and how few people knew they could fight back. That experience led to me starting a blog about HOA issues and homeowner rights. Nothing fancy, just a place to share information and resources. Within 6 months, it had thousands of regular readers. People would email me their stories, and I would provide guidance or connect them with attorneys like Robert. Emma joked that I had become an accidental activist. "You just wanted to take a vacation and come home to your pool. Now you're changing HOA laws across Arizona." She wasn't entirely wrong. A state legislator reached out to me about testimony for a bill that would strengthen homeowner protections against HOA abuse. The bill eventually passed, requiring HOAs to carry higher insurance minimums and creating a state-level dispute resolution process. But through it all, the best moments were the simple ones. Swimming in my pool on a hot summer evening, hosting barbecues for friends without worrying about petty violations, living in my own home without fear of arbitrary authority. One evening about 18 months after everything started, I was cleaning the pool when Tom from the HOA board stopped by. "Harrison, got a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" "The board wants to formally apologize. We know the previous board put you through hell, and even though we weren't involved, we represent the HOA. We'd like to present you with a plaque at next month's community meeting, recognizing your efforts to improve our governing documents and protect homeowner rights." I was genuinely touched. "That's not necessary." "Maybe not, but it's deserved. What you went through was wrong, and how you handled it made this a better community. We want to acknowledge that publicly." I accepted the invitation. At the community meeting in front of a packed room, Tom presented me with a wooden plaque that read, "Presented to Harrison Granger for dedication to homeowner rights and community improvement." Several people applauded, though a few sat with their arms crossed, still resentful. During the reception afterward, George, the older board member who had testified in my favor, approached me. "You know, when all this started, I thought you were going to tear this community apart. I was wrong. You made it stronger. I'm sorry I didn't stand up to Karen when I should have." "You voted based on the information you had," I said. "She's the one who lied." Still, I should have asked more questions. Lesson learned. These conversations, these small moments of reconciliation and growth, meant more than the settlement money or the media attention. They meant the community was healing and moving forward. Karen's criminal case concluded with her completing her probation without incident. I saw her once, about 2 years after everything started, at a restaurant in Scottsdale. She was with a group of friends, laughing at something. When she saw me, her expression hardened briefly, then she looked away and continued her conversation. We didn't acknowledge each other. There was nothing left to say. The pool itself became a symbol for me, not just of the fight, but of perseverance and justice. Every time I looked at that clear blue water, I remembered standing there staring at brown swamp water, feeling violated and angry. And then, I remembered fighting back, standing up for myself, and winning. Friends would ask if I was worried about retaliation or future problems with the HOA. Honestly, I wasn't. The new board was reasonable, the rules had been fixed, and I had established myself as someone who wouldn't be pushed around. More importantly, the community knew the truth. The court records, the news stories, and the settlement all told the real story. 3 years after the incident, I refinanced my house. The appraiser mentioned that property values in Saguaro Heights had actually increased faster than surrounding neighborhoods, partly due to the improvements in HOA governance. Buyers like HOAs that are well-run and transparent, he explained. After that news story a few years ago and all the reforms, this neighborhood developed a reputation for being responsive to homeowners. That's valuable. It was funny how things worked out. What Karen intended as punishment became a catalyst for positive change. Her attempt to exert control backfired completely, costing her position, her reputation, and her criminal record. I never did find out exactly why she targeted my pool. Some neighbors speculated she didn't like me personally, though I had barely interacted with her before the incident. Others thought she was trying to justify her position by creating problems to solve. The most likely explanation was simple incompetence and ego. She made an assumption, didn't verify it, and then doubled down when challenged rather than admit her mistake. Whatever her motivation, the result was the same. She destroyed my pool. I fought back, and the community became better for it. Not the outcome she intended, but the one she deserved. Emma and I got engaged 4 years after the pool incident. We celebrated with a pool party, inviting all our friends and the neighbors who had supported us. Tom and the HOA board even sent a congratulatory card and a bottle of champagne. Standing by the pool that evening, watching friends laugh and swim, I felt genuinely grateful. Not for the nightmare Karen put me through, but for learning that I could stand up for myself and win. For discovering that communities could change and improve. For finding out who my real friends and allies were. The pool was more than just a pool. It was proof that justice could prevail, that bullies could be held accountable, and that one person standing up could make a real difference. 5 years after everything began, I was featured in a national magazine article about HOA reform. The article discussed how my case had influenced legislation in multiple states and inspired other homeowners to fight back against overreach. It included an updated photo of my pool, crystal clear and beautiful. A producer from a documentary series about legal battles contacted me about featuring my story. I politely declined. I had told the story enough times. Now I just wanted to enjoy my home, my pool, and my life. But I did keep the blog running, and I continued to help people who reached out. Robert and I maintained a friendship, occasionally meeting for coffee to discuss ongoing cases. He had built a thriving practice defending homeowners against HOA abuse, with much of his business coming from referrals through my blog. The pool needed resurfacing again last year, normal wear after years of use. Mike's company did the work, and we laughed about how different this experience was from the contaminated water disaster years earlier. "You know," Mike said, "I've probably told your story 100 times to other customers. It's become legendary in the pool service community. The guy who fought back and won." "I'm not sure I like being legendary," I said. "I just wanted a working pool." "Yeah, but you got justice. That matters." He was right. It did matter. Looking back now, I wouldn't change anything. Well, I would have preferred to come home from vacation to a normal, functioning pool. But given that Karen was determined to abuse her power, I'm glad it happened to someone willing and able to fight back. Someone who documented everything, hired a good lawyer and saw it through. The pool sparkles in the Arizona sunshine, exactly as it should. No brown water, no damage, no fraud. Just a well-maintained pool in a well-run community, the way it always should have been. Sometimes neighbors who are new to the community will hear the story and ask me about it. I keep my answer brief. The old HOA board made some bad decisions. We went to court and it got resolved. The current board is great. I don't need to be the hero of the story anymore. The real victory wasn't the settlement or the criminal charges or the media attention. It was the reformed HOA, the protected homeowner rights, and the community that learned from its mistakes. That, and coming home every day to a beautiful, crystal-clear pool that nobody can drain without permission. The lesson from my experience isn't complicated. Know your rights. Document everything. Don't be afraid to stand up to authority when authority is wrong. And find a good lawyer who specializes in what you need. But mostly, the lesson is simpler than that. Some fights are worth fighting, especially when you're defending your home and your rights. The stress and expense of the lawsuit were significant, but the alternative was accepting that someone could destroy my property with impunity. That wasn't acceptable. The pool incident taught me that power without accountability becomes tyranny, even at the HOA level. It taught me that most people want to do the right thing, but sometimes need someone to show them how. And it taught me that standing up for yourself, even when it's difficult, can create positive change that extends far beyond your individual situation. Would I recommend others fight their HOA? Only if they have a legitimate case, solid evidence, and the resources to see it through. Not every HOA dispute warrants a lawsuit. Many can be resolved through communication, appeals processes, or mediation. But when an HOA clearly violates your rights, causes significant damage, and refuses to make it right, sometimes legal action is the only option. The key is choosing your battles wisely and being prepared for the commitment involved. Lawsuits are stressful, time-consuming, and uncertain. You need patience, documentation, and a willingness to see things through to the end. I had all of those things, plus evidence so clear that the HOA couldn't credibly defend their actions. That made my case relatively straightforward, even though it still took months to resolve. Today, the Saguaro Heights HOA is a model for how these organizations should function. Transparent, accountable, and focused on actually maintaining property values and community standards rather than exercising arbitrary power. The newsletter regularly reminds homeowners of their rights and the proper procedures for addressing issues. New board members receive training on Arizona HOA law and their legal responsibilities. The community has an ombudsman position, a volunteer who helps residents navigate HOA issues and ensures concerns are heard fairly. These reforms, born from my nightmare experience, have prevented similar situations from occurring. Occasionally, someone from another HOA will reach out, asking how we implemented these changes and whether their community could adopt similar reforms. I always encourage them to push for transparency and accountability. Good HOAs strengthen communities. Bad HOAs destroy them. My relationship with the current HOA board is actually quite positive. When I had a legitimate issue with a neighbor's tree branches overhanging my property line, the HOA helped mediate a fair solution. When the community needed input on new landscaping for common areas, I participated in the planning committee. This is how HOAs are supposed to work. Neighbors collaborating to maintain and improve their community, not boards wielding power over helpless residents. The pool itself requires regular maintenance, of course. I still use Mike's company for weekly service. The equipment installed after the lawsuit is holding up well. The water stays clear and balanced. Every time I dive in on a hot summer day, I appreciate it a little more than I might have otherwise. Emma and I got married 2 years ago in our backyard, next to the pool. About 70 guests attended, including Tom and several current board members. No one from the old board was invited, obviously, but honestly, I rarely think about Karen Jameson anymore. She's a cautionary tale, not an ongoing part of my life. The plaque the HOA gave me hangs in my home office, a reminder of an unexpected journey from victimized homeowner to community advocate. Next to it is a framed photo of the pool, taken the day after Mike finished the restoration work. Crystal clear water, perfect blue, exactly right. That photo represents more than just a pool. It represents standing up for yourself. It represents refusing to accept injustice. It represents the fact that sometimes when you fight back against bullies and tyrants, you actually win. Not every story has a happy ending. I know that. I was fortunate to have evidence, resources, and a good attorney. Many homeowners in similar situations don't have those advantages. That's why the blog and advocacy work matter to me. If my experience can help even one person navigate an HOA dispute successfully, all the stress and effort were worthwhile. The documentary producer who contacted me eventually made their film anyway, interviewing other homeowners about HOA battles. They included some public information about my case, but respected my decision not to participate directly. The documentary premiered on Netflix last year and sparked renewed conversations about HOA reform nationwide. Several states have since passed stronger homeowner protection laws. Change is slow, but it happens. Communities are figuring out that heavy-handed HOA enforcement and arbitrary authority hurt property values and quality of life. Progressive HOAs are adopting better practices voluntarily, learning from horror stories like mine. The pool party we hosted for our 5th wedding anniversary last month was perfect. Warm evening, good food, great friends, and that beautiful, clear pool that started everything. A neighbor who had moved in recently asked about the pool's history, having heard rumors of some drama years ago. "It's a long story," I told her, "but the short version is the pool had some problems, we fixed them, and everything worked out fine." She seemed satisfied with that answer. The full story is documented in court records, news archives, and my blog for anyone who wants the details. But in everyday life, I don't need to be the guy who sued his HOA. I can just be Harrison, A guy who lives in Saguaro Heights and has a nice pool. The transformation from nightmare to normalcy took years, but it was complete. The pool that symbolized violation and fraud became just a pool again. A place to cool off, relax, and enjoy life. That transformation, more than anything else, represented true victory. Karen Jameson thought she could drain my pool with impunity and charge me for the privilege. Instead, she lost her position, her reputation, and her criminal record remained marked by her conviction. The HOA board that enabled her faced insurance consequences and membership backlash. And I ended up with a better pool than I started with, plus a community with stronger protections for everyone. Justice doesn't always prevail. But sometimes, when you document everything, stand your ground, and refuse to be bullied, it does. My pool is proof of that. As I write this, I'm sitting by that pool on a Saturday afternoon. The water sparkles in the sunlight, perfectly clear and clean. The equipment hums quietly, doing its job. Emma is reading a book on the patio. Everything is exactly as it should be. The journey from brown, contaminated water to this moment of perfect peace was long and difficult. But I would do it again if I had to. Because your home should be your sanctuary, not a place where petty tyrants can violate your property with fake justifications and contaminated water. The pool is just a pool now, but it will always remind me that standing up for yourself matters, that documentation and evidence matter, and that accountability matters. Those lessons extend far beyond HOA disputes. They apply to every situation where power confronts rights, where authority claims justification without evidence, where bullies think they can act without consequences. Sometimes they can, but not always, not this time, and that makes all the difference.